Let's turn our attention to the infrastructure in the state of Mississippi. You just gave the people of the North Mississippi area a little brief synopsis of where you are. I'll let you have the microphone.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're making progress. You know, we're coming out of an election year where everybody's looking at the past and patting ourselves on the back, you know, about breaking our arms, patting ourselves on the back of how wonderful we've done, and we've done some really good things, and I'm proud for it. But we're starting to look now in the new session and the new legislators, or we're trying to figure out what we can do for our future. What we're doing now is more important than what we did 2 years ago and 3 years ago. So we're watching this session really close. We're very optimistic. We see a lot of optimism across the street at the Capitol. We see optimism in the hallways of MDOT. We see optimism out on the highways of North Mississippi, and we just hope that optimism pays off in a really great session this year.
How did you figure into the Marshall County up in North Mississippi as far as the infrastructure and that EV plant for batteries?
Not me personally, not much of anything. We just basically support economic development. We try to let people know that we're not going to be a hindrance to that. We're going to step up, and where they need infrastructure improvements, and it can make a difference in economic development, we're going to be there. Is
there a lot part of that agreement as far as building roads and things there?
There's some infrastructure improvements, and that are definitely necessary. We have, smaller economic development projects that we're trying to get some economic development or infrastructure done too. That doesn't rate the big checks, but we're cognizant of the jobs and the impact that they create in communities. So we're always mindful of that and trying to be on the support side.
I got you. Anybody have any questions about any projects? Of course, as always, you can give us a shout real quick at 601-879-4395 on C Spire text line. As always, yes, sir.
I was just going to say, when people are talking about projects, everybody wants the list, and so many times, well, what about which highways you're watching? And, we can rattle them off: 12, 272, 302, 8, 278. 82, 305, 61, 51, 55, 7, 9, 15, 45, 25. I mean, there's just so much that we have to do. Yeah. And, we're basically looking at $400 million annually to maintain what we have, that we need to add to our annual budget. And that's a challenge. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of optimism right now, but when you mention the number $400 million annually, there's some pause there. And then we start talking about whether we're actually going to build for our future and improve the highways that we have and improve capacity. You're talking about another $250 million annually. So when you're talking about $650 million annual revenue or diversion that comes from another source of revenue, people are going to take a pause and say, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. And it is a lot of money, but we can't do this on good looks and charm. We have to have a revenue source that's consistent, that's increasing with inflation, and that's kind of where we are. It reminds me a lot of my daughter's wedding. We had a budget, and my wife was kind of genius on that, but my daughter would say, well, we want a chocolate fountain, and we're like, okay, well, you can have a chocolate fountain, but what are you going to do away with? You're going to cut flowers, you're going to cut invites, you're going to cut food at the reception. What are you going to do? And that's kind of where we are. And unless our budget increases, people can say, well, what about my highway? And I'm going to say, okay, we can fix that highway, but we're going to have to not fix another one.
Ideally, how much money we're talking about? Another than $300 million, $400 million?
$400 million annually to maintain, $250 million annually to build and improve and get ready for our future.
So about $700 million is what the budget should be sustainable for year to year, fiscal year to year.
No, that's additional.
Oh, that's additional.
That's additional money.
How much of that is matching funds from the federal government?
None. That's additional state funds.
Brad White, the executive director, said the department is always searching for new ways to bring in the revenue to fund the department and its capacity program, which basically what you just said. And the system is created to tackle different construction projects throughout the state. He said, I don't know how we're going to how can we avoid going backwards without reevaluating how to fund this? But he did say that he thought that there were some ways to do this without raising taxes.
Yes.
And can you expand on that?
Well, I think there's some non-committed money that goes into the general fund that he's referring to, and that's going to get us a big chunk. And everything we appreciate, but everything short of $650 million is going to leave somebody out. And so even when you do that, even if you put that $400 million in and you put $250 million in, there's always a road that's going to be bad. There's always one that's the cycle of maintenance will always be there. But are we going to live with what we have now, about 30% of our roads being in poor condition? Or are we going to bring that number of poor condition roads down in the tens or teens or under 20%? And then how many of those roads are going to be fair? How many of those roads are going to be good? The bridges are a whole other story because they can jack up the price pretty quickly when you start replacing some of the big bridges.
Let me go into those alternative funding methods when we come back in just a moment with John Caldwell, Commissioner for the Northern District Transportation Commission. The Senate comes in 10 o'clock this morning, the House at 2 p.m. And for John, I believe you guys got a meeting at what time?
10 o'clock this morning.
10 o'clock this morning, the regular meeting for February 13th. So everybody busy today. Back with more coming up next. Red Clay Strays. I don't know who Lance, do you know what the guy's name is the lead singer in that?
No, he looks like a young Roy Orbison or something.
No, he's a combination. He I swear to you, he's between Johnny Cash and Elvis, a Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, all put together, and it's just weird. Speaking of which, here's a guy that knows Jerry Lee. You were not too far from him in Nesbitt, were you?
No, I was very fortunate to meet Jerry Lee Lewis, and you know, it was a sad loss when Mississippi lost him, but we were very blessed to enjoy his music, and still blessed that we can enjoy the recordings.
He lives on. I mean, what a career, though, man! It was just absolutely incredible. All right, a couple of different things here. Number one, you're talking about these additional dollars because we keep talking about this. How we're going to find this? Where is it? The legislature is being asked that maybe the additional 15% of the use tax that's from the current unobligated portion that's going back into the general fund. How much are we talking about money there?
On what now?
On a sustainable basis.
On some of those diversions?
15% of the use tax out of the current obligated portion.
I think we're in the $150 million range for that.
Year to year, fiscal year to fiscal year?
Yes, sir.
Then go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking anything that we do is obviously subject to adjustment when we start talking about some of these numbers.
Sure.
But everything seems to fall short. So then you start talking about additional revenue and where does that come from? And I don't have a magic wand or a magic bullet that can make that happen. But we do have a good legislature and good team partners. The good thing is we're all pulling in the same direction. Everybody wants good roads. Everybody wants safe bridges. And so we do have a strong group of friends and cohorts inside the House and the Senate and the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor and Speaker of the House. And so everybody's pulling in the same direction. We just got to figure out how to get there. Yeah. And so we'll support the legislature's efforts and what they're doing. And we just got to give them the right numbers and tell them what we need to do what they want to do. So we're not going back to that analogy where when they ask for something like a chocolate fountain, we got to say, yeah, we can do that, but you're going to take something else off the table. So if they would, continue to work with us like they're working with us, I can see where the optimism remains through the rest of the session.
The other place was some gaming tax revenues, some unobligated portions of the gaming tax. Not lottery, but is that lottery or is that just the gaming tax?
No, that's the gaming. Lottery right now is just what they have provided for us, which was the $80 million flat, which was, we've been able to do some good things with it. I don't know what we'd have done without it. It was just been a godsend when it came. Inflation is eating the benefit of that up, but because it's just not moving with inflation like anything else that we've gotten. So we've got some challenges to deal with that, but the lottery funds is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about changing that, other than just making it perpetual. But that was
supposed to go to bridges and roads, specifically bridges too. Are you getting ahead of the game there in the Northern District as far as replacing some of those bridges?
No, we're not. We're making progress, and again, we have definitely been grateful for the serious help that the legislature has stepped up to give us. North Mississippi in particular has 52% of the bad bridges in Mississippi. So when we start, taking ERBR money and splitting it three ways or doing things like that, we have some extra needs in North Mississippi where there's been some either neglect and or just wear and tear that is different in North Mississippi from the ice and the snow, from the the water. We got a lot of bridges, and it's another reason we have so many bad bridges. We have the most bridges because we've got a lot of water up there, and there's a lot of creeks to cross and rivers to cross. So those bridges need some funding, and we can't really split it evenly with an area of the state that may have less bridges.
Jim in Ripley says, what about 15 through Tippah County? It's been decades since that was started.
Tippah County is one of the few that can. I don't think they can breathe easy, but at the same time, they should be very encouraged because the legislature went big on us last year and put 15 up to the top with some real money. We are doing everything we can to put that under construction before the end of this year, and
Good.
I think they'll see that. It's a high priority for everybody, and we've when you're all pulling in the same direction, it works well. But we can't stop with one highway in one county in North Mississippi, so we have a lot of challenges across the other 32 counties and a lot more highways.
You just made Jim happy in Ripley, though, so there you go.
He
John
should be
Caldwell, Commissioner of the Northern District Transportation Commission. Can you track, or are you seeing in the last several years decrease in fuel tax because of EVs? You think they're having any effect in our state?
It doesn't decrease in that way, and one of the reasons we don't see the huge decrease is because we had that federal program that came in with some extra money. We also have, just more cars on the road and things like that help with that. But so we don't see a huge decrease, and also we don't have a lot of electric cars pending in Mississippi. I mean, Mississippi is just going to be behind the curve on doing electric or hybrid cars, and that's okay. So, but we do see
might be a good thing.
That's true, but we do see that the fuel tax is going to fall short, and it's going to continue to fall short as we continue to move to not just electric vehicles, but higher mileage vehicles. I think when the fuel tax was derived, the average car was getting about 17 miles a gallon, and now is unheard of. People don't like that. They want 37 miles a gallon and 27 miles a gallon. So that impacts our revenue as well. So our revenue has been very flat since '87, and of course the costs have gone way up.
Is any of the money that you have to spend, or that you have to spend in the highway department, regardless of what district it's in, is chargers that the highway department's putting up?
There is a program that came from federal that we're in the process of implementing on the charging stations. There's a lot of regulations on where they go and how close they have to be to interstates.
How much are we talking about?
It's I think around $10 million a year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. $10 million a year for 5 years, I believe, is what the amount is. So it's real money, but it's not going to reach out to some of those areas. It's not going to reach places that don't have interstate highways.
Is it cost to us for putting those in, or time consumed, et cetera? In other words, when you say $10 million, is that labor and everything else? That
is money that's funded from the federal program. So it may be engineering, it may be construction, it may be implementation.
Yeah.
So
you have to put those in? Is that a mandate?
That's a good question, Paul. I don't know that.
Mm-hmm. Brandon Coleman plays the lead guitar and is the voice of Red Clay Strays. Any question we have, we always get it answered on the C Spire text line. Brandon Coleman is the guy. So there you are, the new Jerry Lee Lewis. There'll never be another Jerry Lee Lewis. Final thoughts here from John Caldwell, Commissioner, Northern District.
Well, final thoughts is anything less than $650 million annually this year is going to be a disappointment for me. Not to mention what we probably need is some one-time money to help boost some things. But I'm supporting everything the legislature does to try to help us in that regard, and I'm going to try to help them. They're doing everything they can to represent their constituents and do the right work down here for us, and anything I can do to help them get to that $650 million tag, I'll do what it takes.
Everybody's kind of in the same basket here nationwide. We understand. Anybody come up with so many creative things that you'd love to present to the legislature that.
Well, actually, there are some creative sources out there for revenue. There's and I've had
give me an idea.
Yeah, I've had people even on the campaign, not campaign trail, but just in the communities where they stepped out and said, hey, what about a battery tax if they're all electric? Or what about a tire tax? We already have a commercial tire wheel tax on. What about putting a wheel tax on the residential vehicles? Or what to put I think the ARTBA has a few states that they're tracking now that are using delivery fees where they're charging. If you have UPS and FedEx and the Postal Service and everybody running around in electric vans and they're not paying fuel tax, and how are we going to get them? And they had a 27-cent fee on a delivery or on a box or something like that. So there's some creative ideas out there. I don't have one that I'm hanging my hat on. Yeah. The only tax I'm hanging my hat on is I do support everything they do to get rid of the income tax. I think that's a huge benefit, and that's a game changer for Mississippi. Right. So.
Any bills that you want to mention as far as the numbers are concerned that we need to be watching? No, I'll
tell you what about bills. I tried to track bills when I first got elected 4 years ago, and then of course I think it's you that have the is it dead or
dead. You don't know. So you're not going to worry about them till later.
No, I'm not worried about the process or the bill numbers, but I am concerned about the people that we have working for us and the bridges and the road numbers, and so that's kind of where I am. We can deal with whatever bill numbers they can come up with, and, of course, they can strike all and change it and do whatever the crazy things that the legislature can do. I know they compare it to sausage making, but I think that's kind of an insult to sausage makers. But
we'll let you hit the road and get to the office with a meeting at 10 o'clock this morning. John, thank you for coming. I appreciate it, sir, very much.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it as always.
Commissioner of the Northern District, John Caldwell.